Good evening, guys, and thank you for coming to the March 14th business meeting. If you all could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance. Thank you so much. Tonight we are joined by 7 of our board members, our superintendent of schools, Dr. Timothy Harney, our assistant superintendent for curriculum and instruction, Dr. Theodore Fulton, our interim assistant superintendent for finance and operations, Mr. Luis Frontero, our district legal counsel, Mr. Edward McCarthy, our district clerk, Ms. Suzanne Bonetti, and our student rep, Ms. Emily Denton. As always, there are 2 opportunities for the board to participate, or the community to participate during the Board of Ed meeting. The first is just before the board takes up its agenda, and the second follows the disposition of all agenda items. As always, if you'd like to speak to the board and the administrative team, we ask that you come to the podium. Please state your name, where you're from, and you must be a community member in Bayport or Blue Point. Otherwise, you need to be voted in by the majority vote of the board. As always, as you can see over here, our meetings are live streamed and posted thereafter to board docs. And as always, if you'd like to follow us on Twitter, you can follow the district at BBP Schools, and you can follow Dr. Harney at BBP Soup. At this time, we open it up to the community for any new or old business before turning it over to Dr. Harney for his superintendent report. Not hearing any, Dr. Harney, we'll give it over to you for your report. And I know we have the first Lego League here tonight, so it'll be great to congratulate these guys and acknowledge all the hard work they've been doing. So thank you guys so much. Dr. Harney?
You can clap. Welcome, everybody. I just have a couple of few short announcements, and then we're going to get to our students here. Just a couple of things real quick. So we're holding a fundraiser on Thursday for St. Patrick's Day. So if anyone wants to shave their head for a great cause, we'll be doing it here at the high school. It's a great opportunity. It's from 5 to 7. So Mr. Miller, maybe you'll join us.
I've done it a couple times.
All right. Okay. All right. We've also, the last really 2 weeks have been really extraordinary weeks here within Bayport Blue Point for a number of reasons. We were hosting one, we had the Scamia that just took place, and we had a number of students that performed very well there that we're going to bring in at some point in a near meeting, so I'd like to congratulate them. We also hosted, so I'd like to thank Mr. Weber and the music department. Recently we received a couple of letters from their association, and it really talked to how much our staff helped them out. So I really would like to thank them for all their efforts, because we had a lot of students from different schools here, so that is great as well. Monday, and the second note, is a no homework night, just so that people know. And then really the other 2 things that have happened in the last week or so is middle school has really done well. We really have, so congratulations. We have really 2 groups of students that will be recognized in the future. One here today, as you heard us talking about the middle school robotics team. We're going to get to them in a second. Also, before we do that, I'd also like to congratulate, that just happened this past weekend, our middle school, or really 6 through 9 Science Olympiad students. They have qualified for states as well. So that is a tremendous accomplishment to them, and they'll be going to Syracuse really over that last weekend of the spring break. So we're looking forward to wishing them well, and we're going to have them at a future meeting as well, so we can recognize them. It just so happens some of those students are also with us here tonight as well, so just so you know that. So some of them are doing double duty, so congratulations to them. And then it was this past, I guess it was past, not this Sunday, the Sunday before, there was a competition. It was at Hicksville High School. And I had the opportunity, I guess it was either the Wednesday or Thursday before, to go in and really just wish the team luck, which was a lot of fun, where they wanted to just share information, and you could see things that this was a very special group, just from the way they interacted with each other and the camaraderie. I went to wish them luck because, unfortunately, I was up in Albany at a superintendent's conference, so they were going to Hicksville on that Sunday. Right away, I was getting texts on how well they performed and everything they did, to the point where I even wanted to call them. If they remember, I called them while they were on their bus on the way home. And for me, it was awesome because then I could just brag to all my other superintendents that I'm sitting there with and say, hey, guess what we're doing? So that was a lot of fun as well from my standpoint. But we are here to recognize them tonight. First person, really, I'd like to recognize the coaches. We have Mr. Joe DeSantis, who's here with us. And Joe, I'm going to ask you to come forward, please. Miss Henke Brinkman, sorry about that. Susan, come on up. And I know, Miss Kayla, you've been a huge help to them as well, so thank you very much as well. We appreciate all your input and help from that as well. So, Miss Kayla in the back, if we can just recognize her as well. So before I turn this over to Mr. DeSantis, who's going to bring up the students, and we have some certificates for you, I'd also like to recognize him. Just so you know, this is our first year with the program, where they had finished second, and now they'll be heading off to Arkansas. So if any of you have ever been to Arkansas, this will be their first. So they're heading there in May, so that is very exciting. But also Mr. DeSantis was recognized as the Coach of the Year, so I'd like to recognize him. So what we have for you tonight, I'm going to ask Mr. Andruskowitz if he can come up here since we have the middle school students, so congratulations to him as well. And at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. DeSantis, who's going to announce each of the students, and then I believe they have a little bit of a presentation for us. So if that, I'm going to hand it over to you, Joe, and we'll kind of go from there. But I would like to first hand you this certificate for congratulations to you as well.
They're going to present to the board and the audience as well, although the parents have been dying to see this. The presentation that has awarded them the Innovation Award that we allowed for us to qualify for the regional championship, and then propelled us to the Raceback Invitational, which is an international competition. So Josh Bolger. Carly Zentino.
We'd also like to call up Adil Shah, who is our youth mentor. He's joined this team so that going on to Arkansas, he's been very instrumental. He was on the other team, the robotics team. So we've invited him to be our youth mentor because he's been so instrumental in sharing his thoughts and ideas and coding skills with us. So.
And constructive criticism.
However you want to do a group picture, yeah. With that, I'm going to turn it over to them. But again, we'd like to really just congratulate you guys. I'm so proud of you. We're looking forward to the gold coming back home. So let's go. Oh, yeah. More hardware. All right. I want a gift.
So we made these bags for you guys. Just thanking you for taking time out of your day. So you can see a fun little candy in there, some toys. So really appreciate you guys coming out.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for this. We truly appreciate it.
Hey, let me ask you, where's the best place for us to go?
Here, everyone here is going to be able to see it. Anyone from Dr. Harney over, you might want to just move over on the side.
Hey guys, did you hear about Allie Stewart last weekend? Apparently, right before her algebra test that she didn't study for, she gets sucked into a time portal, transports to the future, and gets all the answers, and ends up with an A+.
That's crazy. It's like that movie Back to the Future. So Alex, what are you up to this weekend?
I have a soccer tournament. What about you?
I'm going to my nana's 90th birthday party. She lives in Minneapolis, Minnesota. My dad just got a new Tesla Model X electric car. And it's worried that we're going to have a problem. It's so long just to charge each time the power runs out. There also aren't a lot of charging stations in certain parts of the trip. He says he has a bad case of range anxiety.
Range anxiety, what's that? Range anxiety. If you have a battery or electric car, running out of power, or you get destination or charging.
That seems to be one of the biggest drawbacks of the car. It takes so long to charge them.
I bet a lot more people would use them if they didn't have to worry about that. You guys hear that? Sounds like a broken battery. Either that or a wreck in the space-time continuum.
Holy cow, where's the team dog? Here we are. Looks like we got time to one of those platforms. Good news, we have a solution for your trip to the next party.
Solar Drive!
How are you guys able to come up with this idea?
glad you asked. Here at Franklin Solar, we always start with these.
At first, we didn't know what type of renewable energy to focus on. There was wind, wave, geothermal, and solar. With the research we did, we decided to focus on solar, as the sun is out in more places than where you are able to build geothermal plants, and that source of energy is found underground.
We use scholarly articles from the virtual reference collection and videos from professionals. We also had our school librarian, Ms. Brinkman, in order to make sure all the sites we used were trusted and farmer books get information from about solar panels.
Solar panels, how do those work?
As the sun shines, the photovoltaic cells that lay inside the panel absorb the photons from the solar radiation and turns it into electrical energy.
In 2023, silicon is the element used in solar panels that is responsible for converting solar radiation into electrical energy. We looked into new ways to make this more efficient. We decided the element compound, copper, indium, gallium, and selenide was the best choice.
Copper, indium, gallium, selenide was around in 2023, but it was too expensive for it to make sense. In the future, we have an abundance of element compound due to technological advancements. Now, our solar panels have multiple layers to them to make them be the most efficient and absorbent.
The sun produces enough energy in one day to power the earth for almost energy needs for 1 year. But 2023 solar panels can absorb enough. In your time, solar panels will only absorb 15 to 20% of the sun's energy, while thin-film solar can absorb 7 to 18%.
With our new solar panels, it will be up to 200% more efficient, as it absorbs at least 54% of the sun's energy, while still being able to stay in the thin film cell we now know.
So we met with Dr. Brown from PSEG and Mr. Fuller, the director of business development, Sunrise Power Solutions. They were able to inform us about how much energy a solar cell can absorb, the pros and cons of solar panels, and so much more.
They became our mentors.
Wow, that's so cool. Will we be able to make it to the party?
Yes, the electric power converts in our transparent solar panel. Solar panel is the use of thin-film solar panels covering the entire car, along with our solar power absorbing windows.
These will work while the car is on the road, in the driveway, or parking lot.
Solar drive will have a battery that stores any excess energy and will be used when the sun is in and can't be used to power a car. It will also be able to be recharged by normal EV electric cardboard as well. This is because in states like New York, the sun isn't always out.
Solar drive can be applied to anything, including planes, trains, cars, motorcycles, and even your own house.
Also, our new technology is helping combat the effects of climate change by eliminating our reliance on non-renewable fossil fuels, which release greenhouse gases into the atmosphere.
We brought back our invention just for you guys. Hope you're able to make it to your grandma's house in time.
Thank you guys so much.
We'd like to talk about our robot design now. Carly, start us off.
On the front of the robot, you can see yellow circle X's. They are dog ear gears, which make the lever arm go up and down. On the top of the robot, you can see the brick. It's the brain of the robot, and it's used to tell the robot where it goes to put all the information from the
This is one of the attachments of our robot, and it is applied towards the end of our run for a water mission. Its purpose is to grab a water barrel, which we can use to get 5 extra points. And another attachment we have that stays on the robot for the whole run is this right here. This is used about midway through the run as power lifters, which helps lift something up to the bed, and that's not a focus.
Right here is the gyro sensor. It helps with more accurate and precise turns, and it works like a compass. This is another sensor right here, and it is a cup attachment, and it holds our innovation project model when you bring it to the middle of the floor.
This is another one of our attachments. It's like this one, that one, and one of our other attachments are easily slip on and off, so it can save the most time as possible. It easily slips on right in the front. This is a multi-purpose attachment. We use it for 4 missions, so it really saves us time when we're having to focus on transferring missions over.
This is the code for the robot, and this block
motors, 2 large motors, and 1 medium motor. The large motors make the wheels turn, and the medium motors make the lever arm go up and down.
On the underside of the rod is the marble. It allows the rod to make clean and return this by preventing it from hitting too much friction and aspirates.
The last thing we'd like to talk about is our core values. The core values is what runs the first leg of the program. When looking into it, none of the definitions say anything about robotics. The core values are how people should live their everyday lives, not just through the program. All the members of the Robot Bands found a core value that truly stuck with them, and that's what we're going to talk about right now. Carly, can you start us off?
The core value I'm talking about is innovation. Throughout the season, we made multiple models of our innovation project, along with a RC car that a shrink wrap that is easily removable to demonstrate how it's fully we had to go through many trials on doing it, and we eventually ended with this, but we are going to use it special to help us further demonstrate our innovation. We've also made multiple other smaller models to hand out with the help of Mrs. Zambri from the tech room and with the media.
My favorite core value is inclusion. Because we are a rookie team, we decided to create an Instagram and Twitter account, and we always make sure that everybody gets a chance to be shown on the social media pages. And this post, our member Snow is thanking us for putting a food drive so we suffered for cancer. And in this post, our team went out to Casey's Cafe for breakfast. In the schools, we are working with another team called Brainstormers, where I have Bridgeport Point Public Library, where we made this poster, and we are making a gift bag that we made.
My favorite core value is impact. We recently held a food drive with Brainstormers Team 1087 out of local King Cullen for our Olivia of the Snow. In doing this, we positively impacted our community by replenishing a local church's food pantry. And we're planning on doing many things to help our communities.
My favorite core value is fun. During this season, I've had such an amazing time getting to know the people around me. We've also done so many amazing things, including making all these boards and working with the Brainstormers Team 1087 to create these buttons. I hope to do more things in the future.
I'd like to talk about teamwork. Throughout this whole season, all of us have brought to the table different skills, and we wouldn't be where we are without each other.
I'd like to talk about cooperation. Cooperation is about having the idea of competition along with teamwork. So during the season, we held multiple combined practices with RoboFans 2.0 and the Brainstormers 1087. During this time, we bounced ideas off each other as we were all three of us were all rookie teams. We also had a combined food drive with them, along with making the gift bags that we gave to you before this.
I'd like to talk about gracious professionalism. During the school year, we participated in the Fans Junior Challenge. During the event, we introduced our innovation projects to our administrators, our teachers, and the entire 8th grade. During the event, we cheered on the other groups while they were presenting their innovation projects, making them feel less stressed.
I'd like to talk about impact as well. During the school year, we started a robotics club and opened it up to the 6th and 7th graders. We taught them how the robot works, how to code the robot, and all about first Lego Week, so they have a better understanding of it when they take this class in a year or 2 years if they're in 6th grade.
I'd like to talk about discovery. During the season, we met with 2 experts in the field of solar energy, one being Mr. Foley, who's the director of this at Sunrise Power Solutions, and the other being Joshua Brown from PSNG Long Island. Meeting with them, they met with a lot of words of encouragement, and they provided us with the resources we needed to make the project continue right now, including our self-efficiency route, which is now a vital part of our project, and it says a lot about what we're doing.
One last thing I'd like to talk about is that the FLO program has brought so many of us together that you would never expect. On the team, we have BBP lacrosse, varsity swim, and varsity soccer players, along with having people that love the arts. This team has brought out the best in people, but after this year, we have nowhere else to go, as this school district doesn't have a first tech challenge team, which would be the next step in our first careers. The program makes us all very well-rounded individuals, which is the first thing that college coaches look at when they're looking to get a player. The folders we handed to you before we started talks all about the FLO Explore, Challenge, Tech, and Robotic competition. If you could please, during this time, at all take and look at all the pamphlets and get a better understanding of what FIRST really is. Thank you. Does anyone have any questions from the board and or our audience
Any questions, guys?
about any aspects to our presentation, our robot, and our core values?
I mean, I would just say, what's the most challenging thing when you guys are just starting out? When you guys run into that you found that was a challenge and kind of overcame?
We're a rookie team, so bringing all the minds to a different mindset was pretty hard for us. I myself have been in the FLO world for 12 years, so I'm really able to help and make people get a full understanding of what the program is. And we've really grown as a person and as an engineer, which I'm really proud of all you guys, especially this being our rookie year and going all the way to nationals.
Great answer. You're not going off as a first 15.
Just so everybody knows, everything that you saw was them. They put together that presentation. They put together the boards. They came up with the idea. With FIRST LEGO program, the way that it works is they're presented with a overarching theme. This year was energy. Ms. Brennan and I then presented this information to the team and said, what do you guys want to focus on? And the concept they came up with of solar drive, focusing on solar energy, utilizing the amazing resource that we have through our library, are what allowed for them to create what you saw today.
Like Joe often says, we give them the tools and the time. We are their backup. We help them with those resources. But like Joe said, this is all of their hard work, and we couldn't be more proud of each and every one of them.
I got one question for you. First word that comes to your mind is your number one takeaway from this experience. Just one word, each of you. Carly, here you go. Carly, you're always first. But here you go.
Definitely the experience.
That experience. Next word.
Fun.
Okay.
Companionship. Fun.
Fun.
Exciting. Fun.
And kindness.
I think the word that comes to me because, like, all together, we're such a great team to definitely work with them, and they have really good ideas.
Well done. Well
Dr.
done.
Hardy, can I give one more brag out
Sure.
to Carly, who is absolutely amazing artist. Anything that you see that's hand-drawn here, Carly designed through, created herself. She also did the design in Tinkercad to create this, which is a 3D CAD program for the MakerBot, which is a 3D printer. But most importantly, the whole FLL experience with the core values, this young lady here came to us as the quietest person in the beginning of the year, but she found her voice. And I couldn't be more proud of that because when they were at competition, our second round, we heard the score and it was 205, and we were crestfallen. That wasn't enough to get us where we wanted to be. But we had calculated it out, and we knew that it was should have been to 55. Carly said, "This is unacceptable. I need to go and speak with someone." Joe and I are not allowed as coaches to interact with any of the officials. Carly found her voice. She found that inner strength to go forward and to seek out adults and say, "We need your help. Something went wrong. We need the points back we deserve." And guess what happened? She got those points. Of this incredible experience that we've all had together. So I just had to share that. Thank you.
So on behalf of the district and the Board of Education, really, I just want to personally congratulate you. I want to thank you for coming out tonight and sharing this with us. It is tremendous. And I guess my biggest thing is I'm going to suggest to you is remember your core values are awesome. Okay? Remember them as you're going through life, okay? Remember those. And really, when you go away, as you said, have fun. Remember this experience, because not everyone gets to experience things like this. So enjoy it, have fun, enjoy each other. I know how much work you put in. I know how much work you guys have put in as the coaches. So as a district, we thank you so much. And good luck. Enjoy yourself.
Thank you.
Well, thank you guys so much. We appreciate it. It's been a great night. If you guys would like to go home, we definitely understand. Feel free to stay, but definitely can go home if you'd like. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much. Have a great night. At this time, we'd like to turn it over to Ms. Denton for her student report. Ms. Denton, how are you tonight?
Good, thank you. Good evening, and thank you again for having me. I'll make this a quick one. Starting with the high school, this past Thursday evening, the Student Council hosted a pickleball fundraiser to raise money to participate in Habitat for Humanity and other school activities. The winners of the silver bracket were Elijah Churko and Emilio Diaz. The winners of the gold bracket were Mr. Salvaggio and Shane Durr. Additionally, congratulations to our Phantom Challenge winners. First place was Aaron McGinnis and Chris Van Dude. Second place was Zoe Butler and Lily McGinnis. Third place was Chris Ford and Robert Amato. The honorable mentions go to Emilio Diaz and Chase Lessing, Matt Lightman and Casey Hill, Matt Bowman and Finn Capozzi, and lastly, Francesco Silvestrini. Dr. Harney had mentioned this briefly, but this Thursday, March 16th at 5 p.m., the High School Reform Club will be hosting their annual St. Baldrick's head shaving event. There will be music and raffles. Please join us and help us fight childhood cancer. The deadline for membership for the Booster Club in order to qualify for their local scholarship is March 15th, and the remainder of local scholarships for senior students are due by March 24th. The Student Art League will be meeting on Thursday, March 23rd in room 327 right after school, and anyone interested in having a brick engraved in time for graduation, the deadline is April 15th. The bricks are located outside the administration building right there between the track. The yearbook committee is in need of photos for the yearbook. Time is running out to get content to the yearbook before it needs to be sent to the printer. Photos in the following areas can be emailed to fsalino@bbpschools.org. Senior pets, students at BOCES, spring sports, freshmen and sophomores hanging out, field trips, junior banquet, and club photos are all needed. As for the middle school, once again, congratulations to our BBP Robo Phantoms robotics team, and additionally, congratulations to the JWI and BBP Science Olympiad students who qualified for the state level competition in Syracuse. And lastly, congratulations to all the students who shared their inventions at the Phantom Challenge Junior competition. As for Blue Point Elementary celebrated National Cereal Day on Tuesday, March 14th by collecting 394 boxes of cereal for local food pantries, but also by having fun beforehand by creating a big game of dominoes using the boxes in the gym. Blue Point is getting ready for their book prom, where students will pick their favorite books to bring as dates. This week they are reading 10 different picture books to vote for book prom King and Queen, which will be announced at the prom on Monday, March 20th. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Denton. As always, very thorough. We appreciate it. At this time, the moment you guys have been waiting for, Mr. Fronterio with his 6th budget presentation. You did say you had it timed out to about 12 minutes.
It's a little tougher act to follow, but in any event, maybe I'll stand this way for a change. Can you all hear me? Good evening. And welcome to our budget workshop number 6 in our series in our quest to develop the budget for 23-24. And it's been an exciting, open process that we're very proud of in this district because we like to make everything as transparent as possible. Tonight's purpose, I'm going to talk a little about the transfer to capital that we currently have built into this 23-24 budget and in moving forward towards finalizing our budget-to-budget increase and our tax levy increase. So I promised to touch on all of these topics in the agenda, some a little longer than others, but I promise that I can get through this very quickly. I promised 12 minutes, but I don't know if I can deliver on that. Notwithstanding, we always focus on our district goals. That's why we come here every day. We want to make sure that we have everything in place so that our students' experience in Bayport Blue Point is second to none. In terms of our calendar, as you can see, we're marking time, we're moving down, we're getting closer to spring, getting closer to decision time. So by March 28th, when I make that presentation, by then I would hope that we will be able to decide on where we're going to fall out in terms of budget-to-budget and tax levy increases and make that decision. We have to make it no later than April 18th, that's for sure, because that's the day the board has to adopt the budget. So, on February 28th, workshop number 5, some questions came up, and we thought that the best way to deal with that is to hit them first and discuss them so we have some answers. So there was a question regarding the new energy performance contract, and when do we begin to see energy savings, come into play. And actually, in our meeting that we had with Johnson Controls and our architect, there's going to be a lot of work done next year. The closing on our loan is March 29th. Ordering is going to take place. They expect that they will probably implement 90% of the project throughout next year. So once those items are in place, we will see savings. And since we have a little bit of debt service built into next year's budget because of the borrowing, that should offset that for sure. And there was a concern about, are we going to have expenses without savings yet? But it very much looks like the savings will start to kick in 23-24.
I think what was shared with us, just so that people are aware, is typically once everything is installed completely, there'll be a little bit, just over $500,000 a year But next year, they're not sure if all the solar, which is about 60% of the savings. So they're thinking probably the first year somewhere around 300 grand, somewhere around that in terms of the savings. And then depending on when everything is in, it'll go forward from there. That was one of the questions you had. And well, again, some of it is based on the rebates that we're going to get, and then some of the savings. The majority of the savings will come when all the solar is done.
Right, and the rebates will hit pretty quickly. And we also had a question came up about social workers and the numbers of positions. We have 5 social workers right now. 4 are charged to the general fund. 1 is in the federal fund. What this budget calls for in 23-24 is to move that social worker into the general fund. So we have 5 now. We will continue to have 5, but the funding source will be all general fund, because we know at some point the federal funds will run out, and we want to continue to preserve that position. Part-time guidance counselor, that actually threw me. I was going, who is that? And I realized that that 0.5 guidance counselor is charged in the ARP ESSER funds at the moment. At some point in time, we might have to make a decision about moving that into general fund, but that remains in the federal fund for 23-24. Funding source for psychologists, I had indicated in my presentation, I thought we had 1 psychologist that was funded in federal fund. It is not. They are all funded in the general fund. And there was a discussion about a behaviorist position that is currently built into this budget for 23-24 that we're talking about right now. And it's not necessarily an employee, it may be a contract service, but the funds are there either way to pay an individual who will perform those services. And it works with our reconfiguration of special ed services that we're providing. Over the last couple of weeks, you have seen presentations that I have made, January 24th, February 7th, February 28th, and I've covered all the functional areas of the budget. And at least at one point in time, you should be able to see all of these things and what they mean. So I talked about the current year's audit of numbers, the budgeted numbers for 22-23, our current budget, the dollar increase of the proposed budget, the percent increase, and an explanation about what's funded in each one of those areas. So we've covered all of them. This is now a summary of the entire budget in functional areas, starting with Board of Education and running all the way down to end of fund transfer. It is our current 23-24 adopted budget are proposed. And as you can see, the changes within each of those areas, it whittles down to a 3.15% budget-to-budget increase, an additional $2,554,000 from our current budget, but preserves all of our programs and services, and has some additions as well, which I will touch on. Okay, just as an aside, I think it's important to note, in our discussions that I had with Dr. Harney, that, and I had mentioned some of this at the last meeting as well, that there were a couple of surprises. And when you're developing a budget, which at this time last year, we were developing the 22-23 budget, certain things we didn't know about, and you can't know about them, unless, again, you're clairvoyant. But, for example, the TAN interest, I was budgeting $60,000 for TAN interest, but we didn't anticipate that interest rates would climb so quickly. And so when we went out to borrow our tax anticipation notes this year, we ended up having to spend $400,000 in interest versus $60,000 in interest, which we had enjoyed while interest rates were very low, year in and year out, borrowing similar amounts, but the interest rates were extremely, extremely low. So that will impact to some extent on how we end this year. Health insurance. For the second half of the 23-24 fiscal year, health rates were projected to go up about 7%, but in reality they went up 15%. Again, what I knew last year and what we know now, and that's an additional $336,000 in health costs that weren't necessarily in the estimates. Utilities, basically all the way around, are up higher than what we had budgeted or expected to budget. And our transportation costs probably net out to an additional $100,000 that we would be spending, just not because we added more buses, just the same service, assuming the same exact service, we would be paying about $100,000 more in transportation costs. And of course, our bus maintenance costs have increased as well. So this will impact on how we end this year coming up. And there's still a lot of variables depending upon revenues and where we might spend less in other areas of the budget. So it should wash out to some extent, but it will impact on how we close our books when we get to the end of this year. And again, remember, a budget is never a perfect science. You know, I can move salaries, I know the contracts are in place, I know the individuals and the bodies and so forth, but then there are a lot of things that we don't necessarily know, and we have to make that best possible guess at the time that we're making them. This is our current budget in function summary. Again, it shows the change from the 22-23 to 23-24, 83,523,366, and so on, a 3.15% increase. In terms of what's included in that budget at the moment, it's all the things we know and love, including our current staffing, professional support, health insurance, debt service, FICA, all the things that we have been able to, make estimates about as we move forward. Our BOCES programs, all equipment, materials and supplies, everything that we use in direct instruction, for example, is all in there. Our retirement system expenses and so forth, special education placements, transportation contracts, administrative technology and structural technology, aligning curriculum with next generation standards, co-curricular activities, our comprehensive athletics, music and arts programs. It's all there. In addition, we have some things that are built into this 3.15% budget increase. And I mentioned them again, and we'll continue to, some of these slides you're going to see over the next couple of weeks again and again until we make some decisions. Right now, we're funding some additional pre-K security, which is actually happening right now. We're just budgeting for it as well, which makes sense. And some additional cybersecurity to be sure that our systems are never held ransom by some outside organization that could take, and you've heard about some of those things happening to school districts where they had to pay $100,000 in ransom to get their systems back. So we're trying to get ahead of that. Apogee, which is another attendance software that we want to change from one that we're currently using. We have the one FTE social worker, which I mentioned now was funded in the federal fund, is now going to be in the general fund. We have 2 clubs for each building, and that's to cover the cost of the advisor. Behavioral professional, which currently I'm showing as a contractual service, and will probably remain that way, an EL chairperson, and then some non-personnel kinds of things for the middle school and the high school, tennis court, portable bleachers, and then the debt service on the energy performance contract, which had to be built in because we'll be borrowing the money in the next week or so, and the first payment will be done sometime within the next fiscal year. So list of possible projects in terms of transfer to capital. So we have this $500,000 that we'll be transferring to capital. And this has been crafted. I worked with Mr. Borsfield on coming up with the list. It doesn't necessarily, it's not in priority order, but likely to, this will permit us at least to pick these projects out. We may not be able to do all 500,000, might not cover all of these, but certainly we can decide which ones we want to do. And as we go through the list, whatever we have left, we can go to the next project and so forth. By making them district-wide, we have much more flexibility. For example, the softball field dugouts, backstops, and other upgrades at Academy Street can now only be done with voter approval, which should be in our budget brochure. With voter approval, that could only be done at Academy. We couldn't change our mind and go someplace else. We wouldn't have voter approval to put it in one of our buildings. Not that we would, but that's where it makes sense to mention the building. But district-wide, when we have floor replacements or concrete upgrades and fencing and so forth, and in our budget, in our board packet tonight are the CEQA resolutions that we have already addressed and gotten lined up so that we can move, once we have voter approval, we can move ahead with these projects if we decide to. In terms of completing this list, we soon will decide in terms of the budget-to-budget increase and the tax levy increase. As you can see, the number in the parentheses is the allowable tax levy limit based on our tax cap calculation. It's a 2% cap, but as you know, there is a little bit misnomer in that because we have capital exclusions that allow districts to actually come up above that and still be within the cap, as we are at 3.94% budget tax levy increase. As you can see also that we've chosen to, over the past couple of years, recently levy taxes below the actual cap. We might want to decide to stay at the cap at the moment. And you can see the budget-to-budget increases. So we'll be completing this chart in the next week or the next presentation. Here again, our averages look pretty good all the way around over the past 13 years. Pretty much in the ballpark of where costs have been leading us. In terms of looking at around our communities, some foundation aid comparisons, some Suffolk County School District's tax levy increases that are being considered, and some possible revenue scenarios. Here's a couple of districts, including ours, and it shows the foundation aid that we're getting and our increase versus some of the other places. And I had mentioned it maybe a couple weeks ago, maybe 2 months ago, when I talked about what the governor's proposal was for state aid, that districts got, and again, the foundation aid is the one source of the largest source of state aid, the largest piece for any school district, and it also comes without strings. It's just based on your dollar value and your enrollment. So, and the idea was that it would be either 3% or the formula, whichever is higher. And as you can see, some districts got much higher increases in their foundation aid. I wouldn't necessarily be able to know why in particular, but I'm sure there's changes in income, property wealth, and enrollments. Here we did a survey, my colleagues and I, to see where we fall out in terms of tax cap, the tax levy limit, and the proposed tax levy. So on March 1st, every school district in the state had to report to the comptroller what their tax levy limit was. And in the same breath, pretty much, you would also indicate where you think the budget-to-budget increase might be. So as you could see, starting with the top, the tax levy limit, they went through their calculations, they looked at whatever exclusions they may have, and their highest tax cap could be 2.84 and still be compliant. Babylon plans to also levy the taxes at that same rate. So they're going to stay within the cap, but they're going to raise at the calculated rate. Another school district like Santa Maricia's, which may have had a lot of capital exclusions, as we have, as a matter of fact, they're going to raise taxes at 1.97. So you can see that it varies from district to district and community to community as to where they think that they should fall out. Smithtown has got a 2.87 tax cap, and they are planned to also meet that tax levy increase at 2.87. Again, these do not require supermajorities. They are within the tax cap, again. And this is a revenue scenario where if we were to go below the cap at 3.44%, we have to be in balance. So in terms of the tax levy, the state aid number, which is reflecting an increase that we're showing right now, it would be nice if we could find out from the state in terms of their budget development if ultimately we do a little better. It's been kind of quiet up there. I'm not sure what's going on, but hopefully we'll get some more information about the state budget. They have till March 31 or April 1st is when the state budget comes into play. So hopefully by then they'll have it. The past couple of years, the state budget has been in place already. Years prior to that, we used to find out in August what our state aid was. So hopefully somewhere in the middle lies the truth on that, and we'll get closer to it. And all other revenues, appropriated fund balance, transfer reserves, put us in balance with a tax levy increase of 3.44%. This scenario is at the cap. Our cap is calculated at 3.94. And again, I would just make adjustments. Other than state aid, I made adjustments in all the revenues, appropriated fund balance, and transfer to reserves to be in balance. Remember, whatever we're spending on whatever we have on the expense side, we have to have on the revenue side and be in perfect balance. So ultimately, at some point in time, perhaps at the next meeting, if not sooner, we'll need to know if the 3.14% budget-to-budget increase, with everything I've explained and all the things we know about our district are included in that, including some enhancements, and where our tax levy increase, where we might want that to fall out. Right at the cap, slightly below, etc. And March 28th is the next one. Final overview of our proposed 23-24 budget. Some staff review and discussion, which Dr. Harney would like to lead on that. Any updates on state aid, if we have them, which would be nice, but we'll see. Any additional changes to revenue projections. And ultimately, the Board of Ed will formally adopt the 23-24 budget, either maybe at March 28th, or if not, no later than April 18th, because that's the statutory date it has to be adopted throughout the state. It can be before, but it just can't be after. And then any ad hoc items that come up. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Frontario. Any trustee questions? Mr. Johnson?
Yeah, look, great job. Appreciate it, as always.
Thank you.
The one question I have is, when we start looking at the tax cap, the 394, do you have, or could you provide a breakdown of how much that tax increase is for just increases in the normal taxes for each household versus new tax growth, which would be new pools, extensions, new house gets built, that increases your tax levy, but it doesn't necessarily increase
your assessment.
Your if I haven't done anything to my house, doesn't impact my assessment. That might be a much smaller percentage increase.
That that's we set tax levies, but we don't set tax rates. So there are a lot of things calculated in that. And on my budget advisory committee, I have people who are very knowledgeable in that because they've worked in that field. They've worked in the assessor's office. So it would be hard to predict, and it's even in Suffolk than it is in Nassau, but it'd be very hard to predict what the impact would be because there's so many differences in someone's assessed value by what somebody did down the block versus what it is, and it's a zero-sum game. We're going to get our tax levy amount no matter what. It's just that one house may pay a little more than another house to get to that $59,731,927. But so that's why we talk in averages, or for the average home assessed at a certain value, this would mean an extra $150 a year, let's say, or something like that. But to say I could with a surety, I don't think we could do that.
But I guess what I'm really trying to point is it's important to know that 394 doesn't mean, I think a lot of people confuse that if their taxes are going to go 3.94% or 3.44%. When really in actuality, if I put a pool in, my taxes are up 10-15%. And different towns have different assessments.
Right.
So that's the overall amount of money we're collecting in taxes.
Exactly. How that affects each home will be different. Again, depending upon what is the changes in assessment, if you will, from one year to the next, perhaps.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Ms. Rowan?
Thank you for the presentation.
Thank you.
And also thank you for including all those clarifications on slide 6 for us from last meeting. And I also had a question about the clubs that are designated for the upcoming budget. Does that include the next level of what we heard tonight from our robotics team?
I believe what they were referencing was actually a course for the students to go into. Right now, those students that are involved in the middle school robotics club are also in our science research course, which within the science research course, a lot of the things you saw in the presentation about the solar was the research aspect of the course, and there's a robotics unit embedded within the course. So now as they go into 9th grade, we still do have, we have the potential for a robotics club at the high school, but there's not necessarily a course that would be aligned or parallel with that.
So in their pamphlet that they gave out, it's the next level, of course, is called the first tech. That's what they referenced. So it's in our folders. I don't know if there's any way to consider something like that, but after seeing what we saw tonight, I think it's pretty imperative that they have an opportunity to continue.
So it's something, we have when it comes to courses, if that's what we're talking about, we have a process that we follow when we're going through it. So, for example, the Board of Ed adopted the course catalogs in December from the middle school and high school for the 2023-24 school year. And then this is something that would go through the instructional council as well. So we would have to look into it. That's really what I'd have to leave it right now.
I think that's fair to say, even though it was adopted in December, I don't think, and I'm speaking for myself, I didn't know about all of this and what it entailed until today. So I can understand that there's a process to it, and perhaps we can understand that a little bit more deeply.
So what I'm hearing is it'll go to the instructional council, and we'll get an update in the future.
Yeah, I think it's more than just going to the instructional council, but we will provide you with an update.
Is that exactly what they were asking for, courses, or were they asking for more, were they asking for a team?
I'm not sure.
First robotic.
Again, it was my interpretation with regards to course. The other thing we have to be careful of is, yes, the next level of the competition is first Lego, but you necessarily might design a robotics course that might be different than that, and it could go in a variety of different directions as compared to gearing a course just for one competition. So that it's a little bit more of a nuanced question.
And maybe we can just ask the advisors as well, I mean, I guess what the intention of that was.
We can follow up on what the request was and then really provide you with information. Because I also would not want to rush into something without doing all of our homework.
Thank you, Mr. Ron. Any other questions from trustees? Not hearing any. Mr. Frontier, if we could just, on slide 14, you talked about the softball field, dugouts, backstops, and other upgrades. I know that has been something requested in regards to the dugouts, the backstops. Do you know in the other upgrades, would we be considering the fence as well? I know it does talk about up top, district-wide fence upgrades and replacements. Do we know if that, right, or is that something we're looking into?
I mean, we will probably weigh out at some point what, which ones we're going to do, or maybe we won't, depending upon how the funds ultimately are expended or needed or prioritized. If we're going to spend $150,000 or 100, whatever it is on the softball field, that leaves us with, say, $400,000, and so it goes until we've, exhausted.
Right. I was just considering. I got a little bit of a list here, but maybe I know we have $500,000 transfer to capital, but maybe upping the levy to add more to the capital line. So that's why I was really asking: is the softball fence in there, or is that something that should be added? Because I was also going to discuss in the capital line, we got a brand new field. We're getting lights. We have music. The softball field is going to be upgraded. I think we should consider maybe a press box too at the field. It's tough to have lights and not have a press box. To me, press box at the field, and also upgrading the softball field is something that I think that's the last piece to our athletic complex.
And we're not required to do this. Just that we can, if we have voter approval and all the secret resolutions are in place, that's great. But if we decide we didn't want to do any of these or some of these, that we're not locked in because we got voter approval. So we have a lot of flexibility. But
I was going the other way. I was hoping that we would do it. I'm saying I know we're not locked in, but I would like us to be locked in.
Okay.
I think he's asking a different question. I think one is we need to have a clear understanding of what each one of those projects are.
Okay.
And obviously having Mr. Bortsfield's not here today, so I do not want to speak for him, he had listed these projects because I'm assuming that they were of need. The reason the softball is on there right now is because that was something that was a request, if you remember, at the board level.
Right.
And I had given you a rough estimate of around $100,000.
Correct.
Basically. So to talk to extent of each one of those, I would really need to have Mr. Bortsfield before we go there. And then really, if some of these are high priority, I would obviously want to take a look at something like that if it becomes a safety issue or just something that we're worried about not working properly in the future before we look at some of the other things. So, but I would like to get a clear explanation of each one of those before we look at that. If that's okay.
No, agree, but I'm just saying, if we have 500,000, if we could just get some numbers in regards to what that gets us on that slide.
Yep.
Because that would be my question for you and the board in regards to upping the capital line for at least the softball fence, a press box, and I know I've been on it for years, redoing our shed, because to me, that's the last piece of the high school. What's that?
That I believe is the maintenance garage we're talking about.
I think that's on there.
No, I know, but is it upgrades or is it redoing? I guess that's the question I would want to know, because I believe it was $90,000.
It was right. The quote we received was $90,000.
Right.
So I didn't want to make sure upgrades doesn't mean paint.
No, I think it means board and bat and changes and things like
It would
that.
have been a lot cheaper for that, because I had tried to get it less, but because of the asbestos, if they were doing actual work, that became the driving force behind some of that cost.
Right.
So that is definitely not just a paint job.
Right, so if we could just maybe get some prices there, because I know that's going to add up to 500 really quick, so that's why I'm asking if we would need to consider bumping up the capital reserve line. And the last thing we'll come back to is pre-K. So I know we still have another meeting to discuss this, but I just wanted to make sure we keep that on the radar to see if it's possible to fill those remaining spots of people who did not get in. And I know we don't need an answer right now, but I know by the next meeting.
So then the question I have for the board is then, are you looking for us to try to meet the requirement of anybody who put in an interest, or are you looking us to utilize the money that is coming from the state? Because those are two very different conversations.
I mean, I'll speak for myself. I would say utilize the general fund for whatever money we cannot use from the grant to make sure everyone who asks for a position gets a position.
So then are you asking for a pre-K for all? Because that is a very different
I'm asking
in
for
terms of an expense and a piece that then, again, for years, we will end up owning. And I would be very hesitant to put the district in that position.
I would just say how many students didn't get in?
I believe it was 20-something. What was the total number?
26, 28?
I think it was 25, yeah.
Approximately, I would say 25, 26 off the top of my head.
So I'm saying, is there a position either at the CBO or in-house that we could fill those spots for next year?
So if you were to do that, that is more than the allotted money that is coming our way.
Mm-hmm.
So that means you'd be looking at that money. Then if we were to do anything in-house, then you'd be looking at staff. Then you'd also be looking at equipment and redoing probably another room.
Well, that's why I think the cheapest.
I do not know if the CBO could handle 25. We've had initial conversations with them, but I'd want to follow up with them.
Right, so I mean, I would say the cheapest way is the CBO.
Correct.
So I would just, if we can get a number from them.
I can do that.
What they can accommodate.
Yeah.
That'll go a long way.
Yeah.
But bear in mind that as we go out into the future, ARP-ESSER funding for pre-K is going to disappear. And the small amount that we get, $108,000, is also at some point going to disappear. And so it'll all be general fund. And, the bigger it is, it's going to be some big numbers going out
I agree,
into the
but I
future.
think at that time, let's say in 5 years from now, they were to cut that money off, we would have to decide what is the number we're willing to take for pre-K regardless.
That is accurate.
It's fair,
If they were to cut the funding completely, we'd have to make a decision as a district.
Right.
Just like every district would, because it wouldn't just be Bayport.
We'd have to say if we're taking 50 or if we're taking everybody. That's all that I have. So I know we only have one
So
more.
then just for the next go-around is then we'll get you numbers on the items on here.
Absolutely.
If there are any other outstanding items. And then I'll get you the exact stuff for the pre-K. Okay.
Any other trustees, any questions they'd like to look into?
Just circling back to robotics, in the absence of a new class for next year, I'm just looking through the handout that they gave us, and it looks like the first tech challenge, there's a team registration cost of $275, and then it seems like a software coding package for Tetrix or Rev. It seems like all in it would be about $1,200. And it can be run as an after-school program like a club, which I believe we already have a robotics club, so can we at least fund that portion for them? Does so they can continue on?
In all honesty, I know they handed us this tonight. I have not looked at this all, so I'd like to get a better understanding of what we're really looking at here.
Yeah,
So-
not tonight, but for next time maybe. Thank you.
Right, and the robotics club at the high school is not presently running this school year, so it has run in the past. It is in the contract as a potential, but it is not running this school year.
Any other questions? And just before we go, Dr. Harney, would you mind talking to Mr. Mullins, getting the potential quote for a press box, just so we have that when we're talking about the capital projects?
So if we're talking about a press box, I guess I would ask, what are you looking to include? Because that is probably an SED project. It's probably not just us, right? Would it
If
be
it's
an
just
SED
enclosing
project?
the structure that's there?
I don't know. Would that be an SED project or no?
A press box?
Yeah, because
Not
we'd
by
have-
itself,
we
I
would
don't
get-
think.
we would get no aid on
I don't
it.
think by itself it would be. It
Okay.
could be tied to something,
Okay.
like we're tying certain projects to.
Or even if we work with the Booster Club? I'm just saying, if we get a quote, then we have a price of something to work towards.
Yeah, I can see if I can do that.
Any other, Mr. Johnson?
With regard to the press box, is there a need? I haven't heard anybody talk
I'm just saying, we're
about
going to
a
have
need
lights.
for this.
Oh, I think it's come up over the years. I think
What's
we're having
the
lights. we're having-
existing structure not give us that, do we have a lot of reporters that come to? I don't know, I'm not trying to rain on anybody's parade or anything like this, but, when I think about softball field, I think about, risk and danger, no overhead cover for foul balls. I think about existing fields compared to all the other fields, and how much more degraded that is than the rest of our athletic fields. I want to try to solve problems here and fund things that we need that will better and enrich the student body, and not so much, I don't know the importance of this, so if it's important, then fine, but if it's nice to have, then it should be on a list somewhere.
I mean, I would say it's important to have. I mean, you're having a new athletic complex. It would be nice to complete it. If that's not something we want to do, I get it, but I wouldn't say it's not important.
Well, what I can do is, as I said, is you've asked us to get some quotes and
I
stuff.
don't think it hurts to look at prices.
Yeah, I can do that.
Thank you, Mr. Frontario.
Thank you.
Dr. Harney. Well, actually, any community members or any questions while Mr. Frontario was up here on the budget? Mr. Roop?
Hi, my name is Patrick Rube from Blue Point. I was just wondering if the board or the administration would consider bringing back the science fair at the elementary level for next year, if that could be possibly put into the budget. I mean, I don't think it's a high dollar item. If that, I mean, they haven't had a science fair since 2019.
I don't even think that is a budget, that's not even for a budget discussion. That's more of a instructional academic, and, Dr. Fulton can have a conversation with you about that, so.
I just would like that maybe considered to be put on to next year's calendar. Thank you.
Well, there's more to it. It's right now as a conversion over to the next generation standards and more of an inquiry-based instruction. As a result, the curriculum that's not necessarily aligned with what the traditional science fair was. And so right now we've been focusing on revising and changing our science program and the implementation of the science investigations within the coursework. And the time required for that was the time traditionally that would be placed for science fair preparation. So that's the reason why it was removed, not due to a cost. I believe once we are fully implemented with the science investigations, we can engage and explore and then return to the science fair. But to be clear, that's an instructional decision and not a budgetary decision.
All right, so there'll be a conversation about it. Hey, sir.
Good evening, guys. My name is Bob Kaler. I'm a Bayport resident for the last 28 years. Thank you so much for taking the time, and thank you so much for what you do, because the last couple of years have been kind of funky, and Board of Education used to be kind of a quiet job, and it's gotten very more interesting the last couple of years. I've been involved with First Lego League. I'm Alex's dad for the last 12 years. I am part of the presentation council for all of First on Long Island. I've judged every level of competition First, including FRC. Yesterday, I just happened to do the FTC, or excuse me, Sunday. FTC, which is the program they're talking about now. I can tell you that the programs are broken down from school teams, and I'm talking the FTC, school teams after school teams part of the programs, and home teams. So there's many different ways from the standpoint. You can do this for as little as $2,000. Sans coach, you guys would have to figure out in regards to the mentor, the coach, and how much you'd have to pay them. But again, it's very, very reasonably priced to begin to start the process. And when you look at what these kids do, and again, the judge from the kids from Hewlett and Plainview, and it's the same teams over and over again, 3, 4 teams, 30, 40 kids. What they're doing, 3D printing, they're taking their program, they're building. It looks like they got it from Amazon. Oh, we built it ourselves. It's incredible. And I really think, again, if we can, as an after-school program, before we make it a part of the curriculum, I think, again, we'd be remiss if these kids are so hot right now to give a few $1,000s and move it on as a club and then see what we can do from there, because it would be a shame if we had this momentum, we stop, we'll give it a year, 2 years, they're on to something else. This is a phenomenal program that can affect a lot of kids, and Bayport Blue Point can be known for lacrosse, football, and robotics. Again, Suffolk County, right? It's all Nassau County. They could predominantly win every year. This could be our, kind of stake in the ground from that standpoint. So, thank you.
Thank you so much for saying that. I know Dr. Harney's going to meet with the advisors, and we'll definitely follow up in the high school. Familiar face.
Jason Borowski.
Where are you from?
Blue Point. So, I don't think it would be a Board of Ed meeting without me pushing for science or STEM. I did that for the 3 years that I sat on that side of the table. I hope you guys can understand why. My daughter's involved. That actually kind of was an ancillary benefit, to be honest. But when you see what these kids did, when you see what the Science Olympiads kids have done, it is clear that this district has talent when it comes to STEM and science. And what I've learned from the slight exposure that I've had to robotics so far is that I know when I sat next to you guys, it was about giving kids opportunities. Right now, I can say without a doubt that we aren't giving them as many opportunities as some of the other districts are. Just to put things in perspective, and these are numbers that I've heard. I'm not sure. I think they're accurate. 180 teams registered on Long Island in this league that they just competed against. 130 of them between Nassau and Suffolk competed in regional qualifiers onto regionals. And essentially, this team, the first year, finished second. So, just to put that in perspective, how good they are as a rookie team with no experience with this. They're trying to become self-sustaining. They've opened up a robotics club at middle school. Trying to get 6th and 7th graders involved. We've taken an informal poll of the kids in this program so far, and if they want to move forward with it, and roughly 15, which is about 10% of the 8th grade, has expressed the desire to move forward with this, should they be given the opportunity. I've heard a lot of requests tonight, things related to shed, press box, things like that. So let me formally request that this is something that is explored to be put into the curriculum. As Alex so aptly observed, these are completely different kids that make this team up. They are on a wide bevy of sports. Some of them are in dance. Some of them are in music. There is no way that their paths would have crossed necessarily and they would have become friends if it was not for this program. And I know we're about giving kids opportunities, and I just want us to be known for that, because that is important. Giving them the opportunity to take this as a class, and hopefully you're not dissuaded by the fact that it's got Lego in the first name, because this is so much more than playing with Legos. I mean, the concept that they came up with, as somebody who is an engineer and deals with solar occasionally, it is impressive that this is something that they've developed. That is a scalable idea. I mean, they have working models with this thing. And to be able to continue on and say, I was part of the next generation of the competition, or the next generation of robotics in high school. To be able to put that on a college resume, that is something that will differentiate our students from another district. On top of that, I know there are several existing electives in the science department that haven't run, and haven't run in the past couple of years. I know that because my daughter inquired about one of them, and one of her friends inquired about another one, and was given the answer that, you know, these classes haven't run for 2 or 3 years, so we wouldn't recommend. There's a good chance that they won't run again this year. So it seems that there is room in the curriculum for something that, again, strike while the iron's hot. Kids are excited about this. They see the value. They've had a good experience with it. To continue it on and, again, give them something that sets themselves apart from other districts out there when they're going to submit their college applications. So I'm asking you, consider it, and if there's any possible way to make this happen, whether it's initial, you know, after school, but eventually transitioning to a course, there will be value to the district and value to not just these kids, but all the kids at the district if you expand to include this. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Just so while you're here, I mean, I don't think no one's saying no. I think it's more about, I think this is the first time he's actually just heard that request, and I feel like, you know, Dr. Harney, as well as anybody in this room, he'll look into it. And obviously, opportunities is the word since you were up here, that's the word we've been using with BOCES or whatever may come. So if we could do it, absolutely. I mean, that's not even a question. I don't want to speak for Dr. Harney or the board, but I mean, obviously, he'll have a conversation. But this is the first time I'm thinking this request is here, and obviously Dr. Harney will go look into it now.
Appreciate that.
Thank you, sir. Good to see you. How are you?
Good, how are you? My name's Eileen Kaler. I'm also a resident of Bayport Blue Point, 28 years with that guy. I'm Alex's mom, and my journey with robotics began 11 years ago, quite by accident, with my 4th grader coming home with a flyer saying some Lego team at Academy Street. That team turned out to be the Lionbots, who went on to California to compete in nationals. The following year, the team went on again and made it to nationals. I keep thinking about my daughter, Riley, at the time, who was a very shy, quiet little girl, was the only girl on the team. And from a lot of studies, you'll see that girls get lost when it comes to science by the time they get to middle school and don't have the confidence. All my kids have gone through first. That's why Alex had been doing it for 12 years, and they're 14 now. It's because in my basement, we've been doing robotics for 12 years. But my daughter, both of my kids went on to high school. One's in high school now, took science classes, took tons of AP classes without second thinking, like, oh, I could do it, you know? The confidence that you see. And as for how you can do an FTC program, like they were saying, it doesn't have to be a course. It can be an after school. It could be whatever. Mineola School District has every program in that pamphlet, from preschool to high school, every 5 of those programs. And I'm sure Mike Nagler, the superintendent, is a great resource. He can tell you how he's been doing it. There's grants. And I just want to keep in mind, everyone, this is really important.
Absolutely.
And I know poor Dr. Fulton, I've been bothering him for years. He was very kind. He came to when I ran a Discover and Explore festival. He came and helped be a reviewer. I've seen you at events, so you get it. It's really life-changing. And another positive thing is there's $88 million in scholarship through FIRST sponsors. And you don't have to be an engineer major. So in high school, these kids who want to move on, they can have opportunity to get scholarships. Just on a closing note for your clubhouse, your sheds, an engineer built it. So keep it in mind, that's where it starts.
It's true. Thank you so much. How are you?
Unfamiliar face. Margaret Durasmo, Bayport, 3.5 years, just before COVID.
Nice.
Parent of a Robo Phantom and also an educator in a neighboring district. Wanted to reiterate the importance of this group and what it has meant to a new student in the district who just came here right before COVID shut down, and what it has meant socially to that student. And if you're thinking that perhaps there isn't something in the course book that could handle this, I just want to mention that it has run through science research in the middle school, so perhaps it could run through science research in the high school, which is already a course that is offered as an elective. So if it was going to run through science research in the high school, I'm pretty sure that there are at least 3 kids in the back who would probably register for that elective if you ran it that way. They're sitting on the floor in the back. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Moving on to the consent, Mr. Bonterry, thank you so much, sir. Moving on to the consent agenda. Are there any items the board would like to remove the consent agenda and place on the regular agenda? Not hearing any, can I have a motion to approve consent agenda items G, H, I, J, K, and L? Mr. Johnson, second. It was Ms. Cerrone. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Moving on to the regular agenda, we have 3 items tonight. Can I have a motion to gratefully accept the donation from Park East Construction?
So moved.
Mr. Krug, second by Ms. Khan. Discussion. Obviously, if you look on the board agenda, this is valued at $38,250. So very generous donation by Park East. We're very thankful. Thankful to Dr. Harney and the administrative team for putting some of these ideas out there and looking for people to help to support some of the district ideas. Any other discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Moving on to library election voters. Can I have a motion to appoint the following chief inspectors, Evelyn Valero and Donna Cochran?
So moved. Second.
Ms. Pigataro, second by Ms. Khan. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Can I have a motion to review the first reading of policy 4321.2, pre-referral approach and interventions, 4321.3, allocation of space for special education students, 4321.5, confidentiality and access to individualized education programs, policy 4321.6, availability of alternate format instructional materials with students with disabilities, 4321.7, district-wide and statewide assessments of students with disabilities, and our last policy, 4321.8, impartial hearing officers.
So moved. Second.
I think that was Ms. Conlon, second by Ms. Cerrone. All in favor? Opposed? I know we got most of the community business in, but I don't know if anybody else has any new community business. Oh, that was unanimous. Moving ahead to trustee new business. Anybody have anything? I just have a few things. There were some emails from community members and questions in regards to school start times. Dr. Harney, if you could maybe ask the school improvement team to look into if this is something that the district would like to look into, the feasibility, and do they see that being feasible? Also, would it be something we should look into? And maybe bring some recommendation or some ideas or what their thought process is. I know there's 5. And the second one, there was a challenge to policy 1420, that is complaints about curriculum or instructional materials. That complaint was in regards to genderqueer and all boys are not blue. Pursuant to our policy, the Board of Education will render a decision at a future meeting in the near future. Any other trustee new business? Yep, Ms. Pignataro.
I just wanted to take a moment to thank Dr. Harney and his Superintendent's Council. They put on a really comprehensive presentation about social media. Recently, the Sylvan and Academy Street PTAs were able to meet at the public library, and then we came together in the community room to hear from the students. And these were all freshmen and sophomores giving a presentation to a room full of parents. They did a phenomenal job.
And they were really honest, and the parents were able to engage with them, ask questions. They put together a very professional-looking presentation, so I believe they're doing it again for Blue Point tomorrow. Okay, so for anyone who missed that, they'll be doing their show again at Blue Point tomorrow. And in that same night, Dr. Fulton gave a presentation about ESSA-funded programs, and Ms. Ekstrom, Ms. Doyle, and Ms. Torado presented about special ed. So it was a busy evening at the public library. Just wanted to thank all who were involved in that.
Thank you, Ms. Pignataro.
I always like to end with congratulations and thanks when I'm able to do so, and some of these things have already been brought up, so just please indulge me a moment. Congratulations to the student entrepreneurs who presented their ideas at the Phantom Challenge last week. Thank you to the Bayport Blue Point Chamber of Commerce and the Vinnie Perry Memorial Scholarship for sponsoring the event, and to the business owners who acted as judges, Steve Thomas from Vinnie Perry Foundation, Michael Becker from Nature Shapes, Sarah Kuhar from Pure Bar, and Ryan Thorman from Bango Bowls. I was so impressed by the innovation, research, and composure of each presenter. The kids did a phenomenal job. This past weekend, as Dr. Harney mentioned, was filled with Scamia concerts. Congratulations to our student musicians who performed at these events. Bayport Blue Point hosted rehearsals for the Division I Central Ensembles. Thank you to the custodial and security staff, aides, CBs, and Triumph volunteers who made these days run so smoothly. I was able to attend the Section 1 concert at Sachem East on Sunday, and it was a love fest for BBP. I'd like to pass on a huge thanks to BBP's chairperson for music and arts, Mr. Paul Weber, and our fantastic music teachers, Ms. Ayase, Ms. Carton, Ms. Golaski, Mr. Hurst, Mr. Johnson, Mr. Lighthammer, Mr. and Mrs. Mazzafaro, Mr. Sarling, Mr. Scudder, and Mr. Smith for welcoming teachers and student musicians from other Suffolk County schools, and for inspiring BBP students and fostering their love for music every day. One last shout out to the members of our Robo-Phantoms. Thank you for sharing your brilliance with us tonight, and thank you to the Kaylors for sharing their passion for robotics with these students over the years. Also, congratulations to our Science Olympiad teams. We're super excited and proud of all of you. We're excited to hear about your experiences in Arkansas and the Olympiad in Syracuse. And finally, come on out and celebrate our all-district student musicians at the CB's Performing Arts Showcase next Friday, the 24th at 7 p.m. in the high school auditorium. The Senior Performing Arts Scholarship recipients will also perform. Thank you all.
Thank you so much. Any other trustee new business? Not hearing any, can I have a motion to adjourn? Mr. Johnson, Mr. Krug, all in favor?